Morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Excited to share today, and excited also to see if you guys can add a little bit of color to the end of this presentation with your own experiences. Morning, Dan. You don't have to unmute yourself, but good to see you, brother. So the design of today, in today's talk, we're talking about trends in the market, talking about different transactions that you've had, and also some turmoil that you may have entered or have had in your real estate career and how you handled it. I thought it'd be fun to kind of share some of those different experiences and see how people have handled them. I've got some crazy stories myself. I'd love to share those with you. But if I can share my screen, I think we can start this way. All right, let me see. Can you guys see that? Oh, let me see. Can you guys see this? No, it doesn't look like you
We
can.
Yeah,
did,
we can
now
see
we
it.
don't.
All right.
I see
For a little
landscape.
bit, it went away.
Yes, we can see it.
But we can see your screen.
Can you see
There
Now
we
it's
go.
that?
back. Now it's back.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can see this, but I can't see you. So if you make faces at me behind the scenes, I won't be able to tell. So everyone can see this, correct?
Yes.
All right. So what I want to talk about is, trends in the market at a national level, because I think it's going to be really interesting to see that we're starting to see a change. So I love pouring into the data and start to get a kind of a forebear on the market and the data that's driving what's happening to our market. So let's dive in a little bit into some of the things that are defining our market for 2025. So first and foremost, what we're seeing, in my opinion, is subdued growth. Overall, I think that our wave of rapid appreciation is starting to slow. And we're seeing that certainly at a national level, less so in our local market, but home price appreciation is forecasted at less than 3% this year nationwide, which is significantly below the last 5-year average. So what we're seeing also is an inventory surge where we're starting to see more homes on the market and things are starting to accumulate, which is a necessary part of our recovery. I think that you're going to start to see the market shift more from being a seller's market more into an equilibrium, and we've got data that supports that. So we're going to start with this demand for home sales is starting to taper off, and we're seeing that um, when I'm doing my consults for listings. I was at one yesterday, and it's no longer are we able to, in my opinion, ride this wave of this rapid appreciation where my suggestion for the first time in the last few years has been, I think that we need to start hedging a little bit and maybe start, positioning ourselves for the market is starting to correct and level out, meaning that we're starting to base our pricing on historic averages versus setting new records. Now, we've listed a house this past week, and it went for almost $100,000 over asking price. But the overall trends, of course, you're going to always see those little pockets of, of nuance where you're going to see a difference. If you're in a highly demand or in an area that's super high in demand or in a location specific and the house is amazing, you're probably going to see it go well over asking price. But in general, these are the market changes that we're experiencing. So major market shifts occurring in the labor market downturn. Unlike in previous real estate corrections, this is going to be a unique one. So these are the trends that we're seeing. So new homes for sale have reached their highest level since 2007. And this is definitely not the sky is falling scenario, but it's definitely a change that and kind of, in my opinion, a welcome change. I don't think that we could have sustained another year or even 2 years or 2 years or even a year of the last 4-year trends that we had because of pricing and because of the lack of inventory that we have. So we'll talk about all the conditions that are contributing to where we are currently. Um, we're now about 50% above the historic averages for new home sales on the market. So we're starting to see that in terms of active listings. Sorry, this didn't come through, but uh, this is 40% and this is 60%, these two lines here. So we're about 31% higher year over year for active inventory. New listings are up about 50% year over year nationally. Now, again, keep in mind this is national data. Price cuts. We're starting to see homes getting reduced in price. If you guys follow the hot sheet in your MLS, we're starting to see that. And across the board, if people are missing when they're riding this wave and thinking that they can still continue to ride that and price it on that same wavelength, we're starting to see that those sellers are missing the mark. And unless you're aggressive and you're really accurate with your pricing, it's resulting in longer days on the market, price reductions, and ultimately it's starting to translate to a more even market. So the days on market, now again, when you see 15%, you think the sky is falling, but if our average days on market at a national level is about 24 days, 15% is roughly 3 more days on the market. So, but it is showing signs of a change and correction. So this is at a more regional level, and wanted to share this. This is the Mid-Atlantic region. I know that you guys are all in different areas and your different markets in general, but I think this covers most of us for the fire group in the Mid-Atlantic. So this data is showing from January through June year to date in the Mid-Atlantic region. And it may not present as well on a Zoom call, but if you can see this data, it's interesting. So it's showing that our sold dollar volume, we're up about 6% versus last year. So we're at $55 billion versus $52 billion last year, again, for the entire region. The average sold price is up 5% for us here locally in the Mid-Atlantic. The average sale to list price is interesting though. If you can see this line, this is trending in the opposite direction. Whereas last year we were achieving about 99.7%. Now here locally, that's trending down about 1%. So is this the sky is falling? No, I don't think so, but it's starting to show a market correction and it's in a good way. If you look at our detached averages and the attached averages, so a detached home, right, not a townhome in the Mid-Atlantic region in 2025, the average detached home is $610,000. It's some crazy information. So, also, if you look at so you have detached homes and attached homes in these two columns in the Mid-Atlantic region. If you want a 4 bedroom home in the Mid-Atlantic, the average sale price for a 4 bedroom or larger home is 785, and that's up 5% from the previous year of 750. So again, if I was able to rewind this, which I am, go back to 2020, our averages were closer to $380,000. So we've more than doubled the average sale price in the last 5 years, which is pretty staggering. These are additional statistics on our local market. So in the Mid-Atlantic region, and this is showing kind of the changes that I'm talking about. So new listings are down from the previous year. Okay, so we're down 6% for new homes on the market. And again, so you take these the national news saying that we're seeing a surge of inventory. We're seeing all this houses are getting pent up and the market has shifted and we're in a different world. Well, if we hyper localize that, even just to the Mid-Atlantic region, that's not necessarily the case. So our new listings are up overall, but in comparison to last May, they're down about 6%. Our closed sales are up 21,000, or they're 21,700, which is up 5% from May of last year. The median sold price again for the Mid-Atlantic region, this is all homes, is about $450,000, which is up from last year about 3.5%. But these graphs on the bottom, I wanted to show you guys because I think it's interesting. What you see in these smaller section or in the lighter numbers are the 5-year averages for all three of these charts. And what it's showing is active listings in the region here in the Mid-Atlantic are the highest that they've ever been in a 5-year running average. Okay, so the 5-year averages should be around $34,000 or 34,500 roughly homes, and we are currently sitting at about 43,800. Average days on the market is trending upwards as well, right? So our average 5-year days on market, this is pre-pandemic all the way through, is about 20 days on the market. And what we're looking at right now in the 5-year average is 26. And so we're starting to see these changes in the market. And are they kind of foretelling a change and a shift? I think it's good information for us to kind of own and be able to disseminate to clients. And as we're talking through, it makes you look knowledgeable, knowing what you're talking about. Also, the last statistic on this one is the average sold to original list price. For the first time in 5 years, we're starting to see that trend down, and we're now below 100%. With our 5-year running average was 101%. We maxed out when the market was the strongest at 102.2. We're currently now at 99.4. So if you're looking at this data and you're looking at all the trends across the board, you're starting to see that the market is starting to soften, it's starting to correct itself. This chart I thought was really interesting as well. Again, for the Mid-Atlantic region, I took a 3-year running average. And what you'll see is the closed sales are the blue bar. Now I'm colorblind, so I had to make these like pretty drastically different so that I could tell what the differences are. But what this is showing you is seasonality in the market. Okay, so if you look at closed sales, that's the blue bar. And you can see how things get the hottest through the summer months, and then it starts to taper off through the winter, and then it picks up again in the spring and starts to taper off and goes down again in the winter, back up and down. And you see that kind of seasonality in the market. Now, the difference is, and where the news is going crazy, is the active listings, which is the yellow bars. And active listings have been historically low. And as you would imagine, it still experiences that same seasonality. But what we're seeing for the first time in the last 3 years is if you look at our blue bars for the current year, they're kind of trending on the lower side. If we look at July in the last few years, the average or the closed sales are kind of hovering in that 24,000. We're on the lower end for this most recent reported month, and conversely, we're on the active listings are the highest they've been in the last 4+ years. So that trend is starting to correct itself. I'm sharing this info with you guys because I think it's really good for you to be able to kind of arm yourself as you're strategizing with your clients, whether you're working as a buyer or whether you're trying to sell a house, to understand these trends and to kind of take them in, internalize them so you can strategize and give your clients the best advice that you can give them moving forward. Because as we go further into this trend, you want to be kind of on the cutting edge of that trend so that you give them the best service possible. We're still seeing houses sell inside of 20 days on the market, and so that's going to continue, I believe. This graphic is really interesting, and I wanted to share this with you guys because it's kind of a foretelling of the crisis that I think is one of the bigger issues in the country. And this is showing at a national scale home affordability in the United States. Okay, so uh, it looks like a busy, sort of complicated picture, but what it's showing us is in each state the average home price. And those little pie charts are showing the percentage of the population that can afford the median home sale price. So if you look across the board, like you would imagine in like the touristy second home sort of market like Wyoming or Utah, that those homes are, less affordable, like Colorado, Wyoming. all of those markets have less population that are able to afford them. But if you look at Pennsylvania or our area, if you whatever state that you happen to be in, you'll see that roughly 34% of our population can afford the average home price um, in the state. And this is, I think, is the big issue here. So as we continue to move forward, this has to start correcting itself. Over the last 5 years, we've seen this rapid appreciation, and this is the market right across the board in the United States. If you look at a population like California, only 33% of Californians can afford to buy the median price point for a house in that state. And so on those outer lying limits of the areas that had the biggest growth, and you see that areas like Salt Lake City, areas like Wyoming, Arizona, California, parts of Washington, um, they they are, very much on the outer, edges of the fastest growth levels, and are also going to be the ones that correct the most. Um, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But what I've seen so far is there's a lot of regional divergence. So in the western side, like Colorado, Utah, Nevada, Washington, those price declines are happening the first, and we started seeing those. Um, the Sun Belt, like Texas and Florida, they're starting to make some pretty significant price drops after years of their growth where they were just setting records. They're the ones that are softening the fastest. Now, here in the Northeast, we're showing resilience like we always have. We are kind of uh, we were kind of price proofed through the 2008 bubble, where we softened here locally by about 18%. We're in other areas like in the Southwest and in the South and out West. And those areas were hit the hardest. They dropped 40 to 50% in some states. We didn't get hurt as badly, and we're seeing the same thing here in the current changes that we're dealing with. So, and then lastly, we're seeing a number of homes that are being delisted. So, property delistings are up 4%, or they're up to about 4.1% of listings that were active on the market that are taken off the market, and that's a change of about 1% nationally. So what's driving the shakeup? I think first and foremost, the biggest or one of the bigger things is the affordability crisis. Affordability is still one of the fundamental challenges with high prices and like the mortgage rates and things happening that where the interest rates are still as high as they've been in the last 15 years. That is sort of one of the bigger driving factors as to what's creating the shakeup. We do have a mismatch in inventory. So despite the inventory continuing to increase, many available properties are not going to be suited for buyers that are candidates to buy because they simply can't afford them. So that's going to be one of the factors that's going to present itself, and it might show up in the form of price reductions or trying to, find products or build houses that are going to suit people that can afford them. So, and then discouraged sellers are another factor. If as the market changes, are sellers feeling like they missed the boat? Are sellers still sitting on their low interest rates, not willing to enter the market right now because of the lack of inventory or because of the higher interest rate? So those factors are definitely playing into a lot of the market conditions that we have. And then construction limitations. So while labor shortages are happening, we'll talk about a little bit of the factors that are contributing to the overall construction limitations. We're about to start a new construction community here in Kennett. We actually launched it, and we're dealing with supply lines and supply chain issues, and just how long it's going to take us to be able to deliver a house. All those factors come into play when we're dealing with timing the market, especially in a changing market. So here's some interesting statistics that I found from NAR. So delisting rate is 13%. For every 100 homes that are listed on the market, 13% of them are removed without selling. That's up from 6 in 2022. So that's starting. We're starting to see a change where houses are coming off the market that didn't sell because people didn't get what they wanted or they've changed their mind. Our average days on the market is up 5 days. From it's now taking on average about 5 days longer to sell a house. Now, again, for nuance, it's taken into consideration all this information is with a grain of salt on the top line because we're talking about national data. And I wanted to share that with you as well. So when you see national sale to list price at 95.2%, people again think, oh my God, the market's completely busted and now we can't do anything. We're just going to wait and see what happens. Well, caveat to that is in our Northeast region, we're still achieving about 99.8% of sale to list price. So while the trends are on a national level lower, our area here is still kind of doing what it's been doing. So some economic factors and some policy things that I think could impact our market as we move forward for the last 6 months of this year is obviously in the political landscape. You know, the Trump administration could reduce immigration. They could cut both labor, construction, supply, and housing demand simultaneously if they do that. If we start reducing immigration, we have less buyers. That could impact things. That could create a ripple effect through the market, and we'll kind of keep tabs on that and see how things go. The labor market, like unemployment is still very low. That's contributing to the Fed making decisions on what they're going to do with the overall market, whether they're going to do rate reductions this year. The optimistic viewpoint is that they are going to because they're getting pressure from administration and from the overall trends on our I'm looking for the right word. Our inflation rates, and inflation is down across the board. And I know it doesn't feel that way with affordability, but we're not seeing rising inflation. So that should be one of the telltale signs of the Fed's willingness to do a reduction. And that should have some pretty resounding effects to our market as buyers start to come back in as the rates drop. An interesting stat that I thought I'd add into this is homeowner equity. So homeowner equity continues to remain a huge part of this equation because homeowners are sitting on average of about $186,000 of equity in their house. So we're not sitting, that's one of the biggest factors is the reasons why I don't feel like the sky is falling because unlike in 2008, where we were sitting on a pretty highly leveraged position nationwide because we saw this rapid appreciation, but everyone was leveraging that appreciation and trying to take out subprime loans. We're not in that situation now. And what we're seeing is homeowners are sitting on tons of equity because they've been sitting on homes that have been rapidly appreciating over the last few years. So that factor is going to allow us to kind of ride this wave out, and we should see a calm change in the overall market. And then, of course, mortgage rate dynamics. So rate fluctuations continue to influence market psychology. And then that lock-in effect for sellers saying that I'm sitting on a 3% or like we have a 2% mortgage on our house. Like I'm not selling my house because I'm not going to go out and try to, yeah, I can free up my equity, but I'm not looking to go out and get a mortgage for 7% because I have one for 2. So why would I move? So as those dynamics continue to change, I think we'll start to see changes in the market and how things are moving forward. So the overall outlook, so the market is rebalancing. We're not crashing. I would expect slow growth and high selectivity. The regional strategies matter more than ever. So the national trends, you have to keep them with a grain of salt, but also understand that all of our clients, that's what they're seeing. They're seeing the news, they're seeing Yahoo, they're seeing Google, they're seeing all the market reports for the clickbait, and they're seeing people, starting to talk about, hey, the market's shifted now where it's falling out, and our local market knowledge is what's going to bring us through this and why people will rely on us more now than ever. So watch for delistings. There might be potential off-market opportunities for you to either go out and pick up for sale by owners or for properties that that could be investment opportunities for you. Um, Negotiate actively. We're starting to see for the first time in years, and I think everyone's starting to see it's kind of a drag to have listings that people are trying to navigate inspections through again. But it's the normal market that we should be experiencing. Um, Concessions are back, and now we're starting to see people elect inspections, and we're going to have to get back into negotiating those changes and educating your sellers that that's going to be a necessary part of our market. Keep an eye on the labor market and the macroeconomic signals because those do impact all of us, even at the local level. So I think this market is going to reward patience. You have to do your due diligence, and you definitely need to do your homework on the local market specific to you guys and for your own specific individual market. So our market is drastically different than Philadelphia, and we're drastically different than even the next county over. So in order to be that resource, you really need to dive in and understand that. So National Association of Realtors, key data. This is home sale data. So it NAR reveals a significant cool down in the housing market, and it's characterized by a notable decrease in existing home sales year over year. Despite rising inventory, affordability challenges continue to dampen buyer demand, leading to longer market times and just in increasing price adjustments in a lot of the regions. So what does this mean for us individually as agents? You're gonna have to start adapting to the new normal. Agents are, in general, across the board, experiencing fewer transactions per agent, and it's really going to be a credit back to us as professionals as to how you adapt and you shift to the market conditions so that you can take your unfair share. There's definitely going to be an emphasis on expertise and your ability to navigate this market and be the expert to people that are dealing with the largest transactions in their lives. Um, and continuous education, just constantly just reinvesting in your market, in your knowledge for your own personal edification, but it's in our ability to share that with people is where we're bringing value. And then, of course, strategic networking. It's in your ability. This is a sales is a full-time job where we need to interact and we need to network both with realtors and our clients. And it giving yourself as many at bats as possible to have, excuse me, this conversation is, I think, some of the more paramount things that you need to focus on is how many conversations can you have today about this with people and be that expert. All right, so that's the end of my rant. I'm going to jump down off my soapbox, but this is kind of one of the things I was thinking about. I'm going to try to pull this back from Zoom to see what you guys are seeing. Can you see this now, or are you still seeing the screen, or are you seeing me?
Just seeing
We
you.
see the screen.
Okay. So I wanted to share some crazy things that have happened. So for you guys, if you can think of any different scenarios for yourself that were, a crazy scenario, I'll give you a choice in the next slide of which story you'd like for me to tell. But here are the three clues. So first one to chime in gets the story.
Big gulp. I don't know.
Big gulp. All right.
Big
So
gulp.
Big Gulp was this. So I've personally sold, close to 11 or 1200 homes in the course of my career. This one was I was the broker of record for Remax, and an agent on that was in my office was sitting at an open house, and the open house started winding down, and she was sitting outside of the property. It was a house over in Aston, and all of a sudden she hears this yelling and screaming. So she goes out to the front yard, and there's a guy laying down in the front yard, and his wife is standing over top of him, and he's screaming bloody murder, and he's claiming that he tripped on their sidewalk because it had a raised seam in the sidewalk, and he had fake blood on his body, And so she called me in a panic and was like, Roy, oh my God, what do I do? And I was like, I have no idea. I have no idea. All I can say is document it, like call 911 and take pictures and document everything. And so we had to go to court. They took us to court, and it was small claims, and they were trying to shake this seller down for like $25,000. And so they were through this court case. They were reviewing the photos. They took this person's testimony, and he's like, I was walking down the street with my wife, and we had just stopped at 7-Eleven. We got drinks and snacks, and I tripped on the sidewalk and fell, and you know he's claimed he broke his arm, but he didn't have any documentation. And the photos are what ultimately won us the case, because she took a photo and he said that he yard saled everything, but the photo had the big gulp sitting down on the curb next to the scene of the crime. And so it came out that he had put down his drink and fell, and that it was completely fake. But talk about a frivolous lawsuit, where had she not done that and had not taken the photos, it would have been a lot longer process. But that was one of those crazy ones that I thought was just hysterical, and you never know what people are capable of. The other one, with the house that looks like it's covered in ice. I wanted to share this with you guys too, to talk a little bit about the crazy world of insurance. So I got a phone call from a neighbor, that of a house that I had listed over here in Kennett Square. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. It was when we had that really cold ice snap. And we had it was like below zero temperatures for a couple days. And we were 3 days before settlement, and I got a phone call from the seller who was in Florida and said, "Hey, my neighbor said that they can see ice on the outside of my garage door." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "I don't know, but would you mind running over and checking it out?" So I pulled up into the driveway. Again, it's 2 degrees. And they said, "There's ice on the outside of the garage door." So I'm going to share this can you guys see this video? Hopefully you guys can see this.
I will
No.
share your
No, we cannot.
No.
screen.
Let me try to share the screen again. How about now?
No video,
Now
but
we
we
see
see the screen.
Can you see
There
that?
we go. Yep.
Yes.
All right. Take a look at this. This is crazy. It's a 2-minute video, but I just want to share it with you guys because it's crazy. Sorry for the beeping, but all right, the water's starting to slow down since I turned it off, but you can see the damage is pretty extensive. I mean, it's throughout the entire. Had been going on for 3 days. All the roofs, everything has been, all the drywall. Just indulge me so you can see how bad this is.
It's bad.
Hardwood flooring, pretty much. I'm so sorry, guys. I called Servpro. They're going to give us a call here shortly. Watch the carpet. Everything is just soggy.
Oh.
Drywall pretty much all the way around. Carpets are all saturated. So you'll see obviously the basement was completely filled with water. You see water behind all the paint in the walls. Water's just pouring down there. So I walked into this house, and before I turned the water off in the main downstairs, it would look like you're walking into a casino hotel with like waterfall on either side of the stairs. You see the water. This is 4 days before closing. The entire house. So kind of what do you do, right? So we obviously had to communicate this back to everyone, but it just gives me a chance to talk to you guys about and it was an education for me because I didn't realize the extent of what the a public adjuster's market is. It's a multi-billion dollar industry, and if you guys don't have experience with it, it's a crazy thing to deal with. People that are dealing with total losses like fire or a situation like that. In that situation, the homeowner had called their insurance company, and make no mistake that, when you see State Farm, like you're in good hands with Allstate, or these companies are not looking to give you money. They're looking to keep as much money as they possibly can. So they initially offered those people for the entire the house had to be gutted, down to the studs. All the drywall had to be removed, all the flooring, all the cabinetry, all the bathrooms, everything had to be gutted, and it was a total loss almost. They left the roof, and the exterior siding had to be refit. So the initial offering from the insurance company was $140,000. Right? So they were like, "What do we do?" I'm like, "I have no idea." So I started doing some research, and discovered the whole industry of public adjuster. Now, you hire a public adjuster to go out and be your advocate on your behalf to argue with your own insurance company. So when you guys are dealing with situations like that, the way that they get paid is they get the initial offering, say it was $140,000. They go out and they start to inventory all the loss. And they're your advocate, and they're the ones that are going and they're interacting with your own insurance company. And through this whole process, we were able to get them $470,000. Now, the way that the public adjuster gets paid is they get 10% of whatever the realized difference is from the initial offering to what they got. Still a huge savings. So if 130,000 versus 470, it's 340. So the guy got $34,000 to do that. But it was welcome because that was a scenario where it's just like, oh my God, what do we do? So I've used a public adjuster probably 5 or 6 times, and it's never an easy process. But in a scenario where you're dealing with a loss like that, they couldn't appreciate any more the guidance that we had through that whole process, because most people don't even know that that exists. They take the money, and once they sign the document from the insurance company and that 140,000 or $130,000, whatever was offered, they have to kind of pick up the pieces and put their life back together, operating on a third of or a quarter of what they should have gotten for getting compensated.
Hmm.
So crazy story, but yeah, go ahead, Dan.
No, I was just, no, go ahead. You're good.
No, that was it. I mean, this is open for commentary, guys. And feel free to jump in at any point, ask questions, or share your own personal story. The last one that I have there was one that was a very high profile one. Dan, Sandy Mariani, and I was the broker there,
Yeah.
at Remax at the time. We were dealing with a scenario where one of the agents in our office was given a listing by an investor, and it was, a good mark. I think it was like 2006 or so, or somewhere in that range. And the investor gave us very explicit instructions that we got the listing, but we were not to disclose what happened in the house. So he bought the house at a super discount. There was a murder suicide in the house. He remediated it, updated the house, and gave us the listing. So what do we do? We contacted the attorneys. We're like, "Hey, this is the situation. What do we do here?" And they're like, "You're obligated to honor his wishes. You do not disclose it." So we listed the house, sell it. New buyer moves in, and they're outside in the first week or so, and the neighbor's like, "Oh, we're so happy to see that someone's here after what's happened." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" Obviously, they come back to us and they're suing us, right? So now we're dealing with the lawsuit. And, we obviously employ our attorneys that argue our case, saying that, hey, they're not obligated to share that story with you guys. They disagreed. We won that. They appealed it to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Pennsylvania Supreme Court, after a year of litigation, found in our favor, and they appealed it to the U.S. Supreme Court. So through this whole process, their argument, and there are valid sides to both, scenarios, I guess. I don't know if I would want to necessarily buy a house where that has happened. But it was a crazy scenario because the law still stands that you don't need to disclose that. It is called a stigmatized property. If someone asks a question, you're obligated to answer the question. But if the question is not asked and you're not venturing that, you don't have to disclose it. And it went to the U.S. Supreme Court that made that decision. So that was a very unique and crazy experience in and of itself. So what about you guys? See, Anna, do you know, for the water damage story, did the owner's insurance policy cover actual cash value or replacement costs? They were covering a replacement cost in that scenario, Anna. So that was a constant battle, and they get it down to the minutia of this plate, this cup, this silverware. So you can imagine how involved that process is. But I was blown away at an industry that was kind of on the periphery of what we do every day, that I never even knew about. And it is a multi-billion dollar industry where their insurance companies are not on our side. Nationwide is not on our side. It's a good thing to be aware of. It's a good thing to educate yourself with. And those people are out there. If you guys need resources at any time, just let me know and I can share the adjuster that I have. He's been awesome. What else? Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question. You said that you have
Sure.
done a couple of those replacement cost things with the adjuster. Was it
Yep.
all the same type of damage, or was anything like fire or anything
Fire.
different?
Yeah, the other two were fire. And fire damage is obviously catastrophic, and it's the level of damage where, you're arguing with an insurance company. If you have a fire and they put out the fire before it spreads through the whole house, their argument is, well, those carpets were untouched in the guest bedroom. The public adjuster is saying, absolutely not. There's smoke damage throughout the entire house. We need new drywall. We need new this, that, and the other. And it's in his ability to negotiate on the owner's behalf is where they are able to try to maximize the amount of money that they're able to get.
Okay.
Are public adjusters only good for total loss situations? No, you can use them for anything. Again, you'd have to deem whether or not you think that it's worth it to go out and have that done. When you're dealing with like a car's, you can Google Kelly Blue Book value, and there's not a whole lot of intrinsic value beyond how many miles are on your car and what condition is it in. So for those, it's like a total loss is a total loss, or whatever their cost to repair a car would be. In a house, it's much different. There's a lot more nuance in a house because you could have art that's worth $30,000 on the wall, or you could have a poster. So it's in your ability to argue the value of your property and what's in it, is where those public adjusters really kind of earn their salt. Anyone else have crazy stories?
I have a funny story.
Yeah,
So
please.
back in 2003, my rookie year, um, I
Me
was
too.
going, I was going to train at an open house, and I got there early. I was dressed to the nines, kind of a thing. This old woman like raised her family there. She was like, "Oh, I want to show you through the house." She's just the homeowner. I walked through with her. She was like talking about all sorts of different stuff. And the guy that was training me shows up, and like he's run up. He has like one of those old school like briefcases, but it looks like a square. It's like and he's like running. He's like throwing his jacket, kind of disheveled a little bit. He comes in, and the woman's like, "Oh, I'm glad you're here. I want to walk you through." He was like, "Oh, I don't need to walk through the house." Right. And I was like, "Oh, that's weird," but she insisted, and then he kind of rolled his eyes. He was like, "All right." So I was like, "Oh my god." So this minute she leaves, he sits down at the kitchen table, opens up his briefcase. There's a hoagie in there. He takes the hoagie out of the briefcase and just starts chewing on this thing. Goes up, opens the fridge, grabs the iced tea out of the fridge, pours himself a glass of iced tea.
Oh my God.
Like, it's the craziest thing. This guy's just like, it was so funny, and I use it as an example of like what not to do. You
No
know,
doubt.
this guy pulls up in a pickup truck. He's got like a flannel shirt on. Looked like a contractor. As he's walking in the house, the guy looks at me. The guy training me looks at me and goes, "These people can't afford this house. You don't even talk to these people."
Oh my God.
It was everything. Like, if you could check a box on like what not to do, like it's insane. Anyway, it was
The
really,
worst agent ever. You're
oh
right.
my gosh. Like, why is this guy training people? Number one.
Yeah, seriously. Well, it's crazy to see the gamut of like the experiences that you've had over the years, and like I've been involved in two procuring cause hearings. I was in mediation for the first time ever this year, and that was an interesting process. Dealing with what do you do? Have you guys, any of you ever experienced working with two separate buyers for the same house? That happened to me a couple times in the last, in the
Yeah.
last few years. That's a tricky situation. Like, working with buyers that have been, that you've been working with for a couple of months, even showing them dozens of houses, and all of a sudden the one hits the market. And not only do you have that buyer, you're working with another buyer. Both want to write offers on the same house. What do you do? Right? So you don't want to lose the commission by giving it to another agent, but you also need to protect the interests of both clients and represent their highest best interests. And so, I had to disclose to both buyers that I have another buyer for this house. And, what would you guys like me to do? Right? Because my advice is for you guys both to come in with your highest and best offer. I can't educate you on what the other person is doing, but if you would like me to, relegate you to another agent on my team, I can share that with, and they're both saying, no, we want you to represent us. So talk about a strange situation where you have to write an offer, and, possibly the one is a little bit better than the other one,
Well,
and
it's
try to give it, it's
full
very
agency.
strange.
You're in a do no harm situation, right? You
Yeah,
can't do harm to either party.
correct.
So that's how that's happened to me before.
Yeah.
It's intriguing.
Tricky.
Mostly that, like, land deals, if I'm representing like two different developers or builders, and they're
Yep.
a little bit easier in that world because they don't really care.
Yep.
They care, but it's not the end of the world.
Yep. I had a scenario a few years ago when we did the walkthrough for a house on the day of settlement. And we walked into, scheduled it, confirmed, no problem, opened the door, walk in, nothing was packed. Not a thing, not a
Oh,
box. It looked like the day that we showed it. The kids were sitting at the kitchen table eating breakfast. And I walked in with, now I had people coming in a moving truck with their kids in the truck, and the wife was following the moving truck with their dog,
oh,
closing today, moving in today. And I walked in, I was like, what the hell are you guys doing? So they're like, well, yeah, we haven't gotten around to packing yet. And literally, this happened. So I'm like, you guys, we're settling in an hour and a half.
oh,
And so literally, there's a moving truck. You know how movers are. They don't like having things on their truck for more than 15 minutes past when they're supposed to be there. So it was like all hell broke loose. We've had to figure out, so what do you do in that situation, right? So call the agent, obviously. He was completely unaware of this situation, not really that participative in the transaction, which is part of the problem. But, ultimately what we had to do, because they had a mortgage rate lock, we had settlement scheduled, everything was in place. We had to make settlement. And then we structured a $2,500 per diem for every day that they weren't out of the house, that the sellers had to pay the buyers because they had to have keep all their stuff in a truck, stay in a hotel, work out what they're going to do with their kids and their dog. And it was a crazy scenario, but ultimately they were out in 3 days because we put that in there and said, look, we're going to settle, but you're signing this. And if you don't sign it, then we're going to take you to court. And so the buyers, I mean, talk about craziness. They wound up getting about $7,500 for the disruption, but that was a heart in your stomach scenario where the kids are literally clanking spoons in their bowls for their breakfast cereal, and you're like, what in the hell is happening here? So, guys, that's all I have. I know we're coming up on our hour, but if anyone has questions or anyone has any additional stories, I'd love to hear it because I'd learned a lot from sharing this kind of stuff.
Thanks, Rory.
All right, guys.
Rory, thank you.
Thank you for your time, and we'll see you guys, I'm sure, this week or next Monday as well.
Thanks for
Thank you.